This rather gentle but beautiful landscape is in Lincolnshire. It's not high ground, we're not even 200 feet above sea level. But it is high compared with the low-lying fenlands just a few miles away. Instead of looking at this countryside, though, we're going to be looking at a town, or if you like, an urban landscape. We chose for our study the town of Bourne, a small market town sited at the bottom of a gentle slope formed by the underlying limestone rock. As well as being a market town serving the needs of people in the countryside around, Bourne is also a route centre. Main roads from all directions converge on the old marketplace in the heart of the town. This was probably one of the reasons why a settlement grew up here in the first place. To make a proper study of a town in a short space of time, you need quite a few people to carry out the fieldwork.
Another car, and a motorbike, and a van, and a heavy lorry.
It's difficult for one person to carry out a traffic count accurately, but two people can take it in turns to call out the type of vehicle and tick off the classification in the right column.
Another lorry.
I joined a number of local students who had already started a traffic count to find out the use of Bourne as a route centre. How many vehicles have you counted?
Oh, about 40, I should think, in the last half an hour or so.
There seem to be more cars and light vans than anything else.
Yes, there's not many bikes or lorries.
No extra large vehicles?
No, not many.
And how long have you been counting?
About half an hour.
I see you took over from somebody else here.
Yes, about 10 minutes ago.
And somebody's going to take over from you?
Yeah, in about 5 minutes.
Yep. Well, who's counting the traffic coming into town?
Oh, those two on the other side of the road over there.
Of course, a traffic census has to be done at intervals during the day to get some idea of the type of traffic, the main direction of flow, and the peak travelling times.
Another car.
Bourne Parish Church is very old, and it tells us that there must have been some sort of settlement here way back in Norman times 800 years ago. Indeed, there's even evidence that there was a settlement here in pre-Roman times. The very name Bourne means stream or small river, and there was certainly plenty of evidence of water. In an open space within the town, there was a pond of crystal clear water fed by several natural springs. I arranged to meet the chief engineer of the local water board to find out more about it. Peter's Pool here is the source of the stream which runs through Bourne, isn't it?
That's correct.
And where does the water come from?
Well, this water comes from the Lincolnshire limestone, which is at 80 feet below the ground at this point. The water finds its way through natural fissures in the limestone and through the overlying clays and fills the pool.
Is the water level always as high as this?
Oh, no, no, by no means. This is quite high, actually. It's about its highest. It varies, the level varies throughout the year, depending on the rainfall. And in fact, during the last few years, it has dried up completely during the summer.
This is fresh water, isn't it?
Oh, yes, it's a very good source of supply.
And I suppose this is where people would have taken their drinking water from years ago?
Yes, probably one of the main reasons why a settlement was ever established here was this plentiful supply of good drinking water.
Today, as the demand for water is greater, it has to be pumped to the surface to serve the needs of industry and the home. In earlier times, the power of running water was also used to grind the wheat. But the flour mills have long since changed their function as well as their source of power. Today, they're producing animal feedstuffs from a variety of raw materials, including cereals, cultivated in the surrounding countryside. But now, of course, the power for the mill is supplied by electricity. Indeed, Bourne has seen many changes over the centuries, but in spite of this, there are still many fine buildings scattered throughout the town. But to get an up-to-date record of the functions and the purposes of the buildings, you have to make an on-the-spot survey, and that's just what some students have been doing in one of the main streets. The technique is to record as much as you can about the function of the buildings on a 25-inch-to-the-mile plan of the town. On this scale of plan, every building is marked, and by the use of symbols you can record the purpose of each building. Often the maps will be out of date because the function of buildings can change very quickly, or the buildings may have been demolished altogether and a new block built in its place.
This is the electrical store. It's number 3. And it's S14. It was the Herrywood Fish Shop, as you can see by that notice. And it used to sell games. Oh, yes.
Architecture.
Just as we look at the rocks and structure of a landscape, so we must look at the material used in the construction of buildings and at the style of architecture.
There seems to be a tall chimney and the slate roof has a steep gable.
First floor, it's got sash windows, which probably means it's a very old building. The ground floor, it's got arched windows with stone facing.
This obviously fairly old building has probably been converted to a bank, and no doubt the stone facing has been added to give it a more solid and impressive appearance. The large chain store next to it is completely new and purpose-built. Centrally heated modern buildings don't require chimneys or sloping roofs. It's a rather plain, rectangular brick building, but to make it more distinctive, a number of materials have been used to face the ground floor, including tile mosaic, aluminium, and a lot of glass. A photographic record of different styles of architecture is always a help in identifying the age of buildings later. Maps of a town are very important because they show the layout of the streets as well as of the buildings, and the street and road patterns, together with some field work, can give us an idea of how the town grew up. The older buildings of Bourne were mainly along the high street running through the centre of the town. As the town expanded, especially in the last century, more roads were built parallel and at right angles to the main road. But the main road became extended itself, with houses built along it some way from the centre of the town. These were the houses of the wealthy, large and impressive with spacious driveways. In those quieter days, it was an advantage to have a house fronting a main road, while the poorer classes had to make do with dwellings bunched together away from the main thoroughfare. Well, the people who had these houses built were probably reasonably well off. Now, this is a road some 50 metres behind the main street and running parallel to it. We can see that the houses are completely separated from each other, they're detached, and the builders very conveniently gave us the date of their construction. During the 20th century, Bourne has expanded even more. Houses began to take on a standard appearance. Rows and rows of semi-detached houses, almost identical in construction. Further still from the town centre, modern housing developments have been built, often fully detached, and nearly all with the essential addition of a garage. They're built with basically the same old materials. We can learn a lot about the history and growth of a town from the bricks and mortar, but a town exists because people live in it and come to it to use its facilities. People have been coming to the market in Bourne for centuries. As part of our fieldwork, we tried to find out why people are still coming today.
Well, actually, I'm just doing my shopping, and then
Is it because of the market?
because of the market. Oh, yes, definitely.
How often do you come into Bourne?
Oh, about once a week or once a fortnight. It varies, you see, you know.
And how do you travel into Bourne?
On the bus. The bus comes through once a week. Yeah.
Thank you. Could you tell me where you live, please?
Beach Avenue in Bourne.
Thank you. And why are you in Bourne today?
Well, we do our shopping there Thursdays, you see, in the market.
You come in every week?
Every week, yes.
And why do you come to the market?
Well, we have a variety, you know, in the market, and sometimes a bit cheaper. That's the main thing these days.
Do you come to the market every week?
Every week, every Thursday, regular.
And do you get all your shopping in Bourne?
Oh, we never go anywhere else.
Nowhere.
It's too dear to travel now, see.
It's always best to have a brief questionnaire prepared beforehand so that you don't keep people waiting too long. Most towns have some sort of industry, and Bourne was no exception. To complete our town study, we made an industrial survey. Being in an agricultural setting, Bourne naturally had industries which served the needs of the farmer, like agricultural machinery, and chemicals for manufacturing artificial fertilizers. It also had a glasshouse industry, a nursery growing houseplants. But there were also a number of industries located in Bourne, apparently for no special reason.
How long has this firm been here?
We've been here for 4 years, approximately.
Why did you choose to locate the factory in Bourne?
It was a matter of choice whether to stay in a rural area where we was transporting stuff into the factory, or whether to come into a more densely populated area with a good female staff without transporting them. Simple as that, really.
What sort of plastics do you manufacture?
Well, when you say manufacture, we don't actually manufacture plastics. We process plastics, and we process PVC and polyethylene. They're all byproducts of the oil industry. PVC, being a thermoplastic material, needs to be heated to bring it to a solid matter. This is done by using a liquid material injected into a hollow mold, which is then sealed and rotated in varying temperatures in an oven. It is then cooled and extracted, forming the object required with no joins whatsoever. It's a solid, it's a one complete unit without any join marks from it. In this case, an high-density polyethylene gives off a surface grease which has to be removed before it can be painted. If you paint it without flaming, it would rub off straight away. But on flaming, it gives a key. And if they're not painted within 4 hours, they have to be reflamed again.
Would you describe the labour force as unskilled, skilled or highly skilled?
Varying from skilled. Highly skilled, of course, comes in the machining of the certain tools we use. Also, the high skill comes from the modeler, and the skill comes on the operators, on the rotary casting machines. Semi-skill comes in the finishing of the items. So we've got a varying labour force.
In striking contrast to the factory processing plastics was a firm manufacturing racing cars and components. Here there was no one basic raw material and no mass production, but a very highly specialised end product.
Is the whole motor car made here at Bourne?
Yes, the BRM is only all-British car. That's races in the Formula One World Championship. And we're the only one to make the gearbox, the engine, and the car. There's only two in the world, Ferrari and ourselves.
How many cars are produced here a year?
Depends really on the rate of damage. You occasionally have to allow for 3 or 4 cars to be written off. I should say about 10 a year.
Is the whole labour force here at BRM highly skilled?
Yes, very highly skilled.
What would be the final cost of the car?
The current price must be in the region of £25,000 a car.
With the firm so highly specialised, how do you manage to make profits?
Parallel with the racing activities, we have a commercial section which deals with engine development and so on, and from that one ploughs back the profits to pay for the racing. But it is a very costly business. Even this small factory is well over $500,000. The actual evolution of a racing car begins in the drawing office, where the first outline design is made. It then goes into the detail drawing. From there, it's processed to the machine shop. It's a comprehensive program. It's very fascinating to have it starting in the drawing office. Before the drawing office, you have it in discussions and technical meetings.
This was a firm employing a large, highly skilled labour force, every engineering component being designed and manufactured to a very high degree of precision. I visited a quite different firm located in a part of the town where the local council was trying to encourage new industries. This was a small iron foundry employing only half a dozen workers. It was owned and run by just one man, and he started the business in Bourne simply because he lived nearby and was attracted to the site offered by the council. What kind of raw materials do you use?
Pig iron.
Which is what, exactly?
This comes from the blast furnaces. It consists of different formula according to the customer's requirements. This is mixed with a percentage of scrap iron, good quality scrap. After the initial firing up, you have to build the bed of the coke up to a certain level, and then we can charge the pig iron and scrap, and the metal melts on the top of the coke bed and falls down between the coke into the well of the furnace, where it's tapped off and it's drained off at intervals into a ladle, and they're transported away by overhead means to the moulds which are on the floor, and simply poured into the moulds.
And how long does a casting take to cool off?
There again, it depends on the thickness of the section of the casting. Quite often you can remove a casting within an hour. Or if it's a really heavy casting, particularly if it's subject to cracking in the setting process, you probably have to leave it there all night.
What kind of things do you make?
A whole variety of castings, bread and butter work, tractor weights, any type of weight that a customer may want, up to say 300 or 400 weight, to odds castings, agricultural castings, gear wheels, gearboxes we do sometimes, manifolds. In fact, any small jobs which is required.
Well, Bourne isn't really an industrial town, but it does have a variety of small industries, like the ones we've seen, which provide work for people in the town and for people in the surrounding countryside who once depended on agriculture for their employment. Our fieldwork showed how Bourne had started as a small settlement at the junction of important routeways, and at a point where spring water was available. It had since grown to a prosperous market town, providing work and serving the needs of the townsfolk and countryfolk alike.